They say these people are ghosts. Movies show the world completely invisible to the systems we trust to see everything. Governments do not notice them, banks do not flag them, and yet, somehow billions of dollars pass through their hands every single year, without ever tripping an alarm. And it all starts with something as simple as a bag of cash. Inside this bag is $100,000 in cash, stuck tightly heavy in the hand. The kind of money that feels powerful until you realize it comes with a problem you can't solve easily. Because the question is simple at first. What do you even do with it? You could spend it on anything, really a new car, a watch, a flight somewhere far away, maybe even something ridiculous like a designer jacket or rare collectibles. But the moment you try to actually use it in the real world, it becomes dangerous. Not because of the money itself, but because of what it represents. The money is dirty. Not dirty in the sense of being physically unclean, not something you can wash off with soap and water, but dirty in a way that matters much more. It came from somewhere illegal, in this case from drugs, from a world where cash moves outside of law, outside of tax systems, outside of anything that makes it legitimate, and that creates a problem that isn't about spending it, but about survival. Because this money doesn't belong to you in the way normal money does, it belongs to someone else, somewhere else, and your job isn't to enjoy it, but to move it back without getting caught. So you can't just walk at a bank and deposit it, because the moment you do, the system itself becomes your enemy. Banks are designed to notice patterns, to flag unusual behavior, and ask uncomfortable questions. And if they suspect something is wrong, the entire thing collapses. You also can't simply carry it across borders, because physical cash is one of the most heavily watched things in the world. Even trying to move it becomes a real risk. Every option leads to the same dead end. So you are left with only one real solution. You need to clean it. Money laundering. The process of turning dirty money into something that looks legitimate, because less of a choice and more of a necessity. But the strange thing is that this isn't just a story about crime or criminals, it's actually about scale. Because once you zoom out, you realize this isn't about one bag of cash at all. Estimated that trillions of dollars move through the global economy each year that come from illegal activity. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking, illegal mining, wildlife trade. All of it produces money that has to go somewhere. Roughly a few percent of global GDP is considered illicit, which means the system we think as clean and regulated is constantly being touched by money that's anything but. And that's where something far more interesting appears. Something investigators sometimes call flying money. It doesn't physically move the way we imagine money should move, it doesn't cross borders in armored trucks or get virus through visible banking systems. Instead, it moves through trust, invisible agreements between people in different parts of the world who owe each other favors, balances, and exchanges that never fully appear in official records. On the surface it looks like nothing is happening, but underneath, value is constantly shifting. To understand how strange the system really is, you have to go back hundreds of years to the Tang Dynasty in China, when merchants faced a very simple problem. Carrying money was dangerous, copper coins were heavy, travel was risky, and actually bandits were actually everywhere. So merchants developed something clever. Instead of carrying coins back home after selling goods in the capital, they would deposit their money with a trusted broker, receive a paper note, and then redeem that note with the partner merchants in their hometown. No coins had to travel back, only trust did. The idea that value can move without physically moving becomes one of the earliest versions of paper money. But more importantly, it becomes a blueprint for something much larger that would eventually spread across continents and centuries. Chinese diaspora communities formed around the world, especially in places where they were excluded from formal banking systems. They built their own networks of trade, credit, and trust. Family businesses, tight-knit communities, and informal agreements allowed money to move across borders without ever touching official systems. Most of the time this was completely legal, even necessary, but like many systems built on trust rather than oversight, it eventually becomes something else as well. Obviously, criminal organizations noticed it. Because we can move legitimate money without detection, you can also move legitimate money in the same way. Drug cartels, traffickers, and smugglers began to plug into the same invisible networks, creating a parallel financial system that sits underneath the global economy like a shadow. And here's where it becomes almost impossible to track. Imagine two separate worlds running side by side. In one, a wealthy businessman in China wants to move $2 million out of the country to buy property in the United States. In another, a drug cartel in Mexico is sitting on millions in cash that cannot be deposited anywhere without raising alarms. Normally, these two worlds would never connect, but in this system, they do. What makes it even more powerful is as the systems don't just move money, they balance through trade. A company might over-invoice or under-invoice shipments. A $10 million shipment of electronic might actually contain only $1 million worth of goods, while the remaining value is handily transferred through accounting gaps, or a legal-looking trade deal might secretly settle debts between criminal groups across continents. Good moves, paperwork moves, but value moves differently from both. And when you step back, the network becomes almost real. Illegal gold mining in Africa connects to wildlife trafficking in Southeast Asia, which connects to drug routes in Latin America, which connects to luxury market in Europe and real estate in North America. It is not a single organization. It is not a single conspiracy. It's a structure built from thousands of small, trusted connections that together form something global and nearly invisible. Most unsettling part is that the system doesn't rely on technology alone. In fact, much of it was digital systems entirely. It survives because it's human, built on relationships, shared language, cultural ties, and trust that can be easily coded or tracked. Even as surveillance and banking regulations improve, these networks adapt, shifting into more complex and more subtle form. Investigators who study it describe it as overwhelming, almost impossible to map fully. Every connection leads to another, every broker connects to multiple regions, every transaction split into more layers of trade, cash and obligation. What looks like individual crimes are actually just points inside a much larger structure. And the most important realization is this: the system doesn't move money in a straight line. It calculates value in loops, discusses and substitutions, so that by the time anything reaches its destination, it no longer resembles what it started as. That's why it's so difficult to stop. Because there is no single moment where the crime happens. It's distributed across countries, across people, across legitimate and illegitimate businesses at the same time. And so the vote keeps running on two systems at once. The visible one we regulate, tax and monitor, and the invisible one that moves underneath. It's carrying the weight of everything the official systems cannot hold. And somewhere inside that invisible layer, money doesn't just move, it flies. Really grateful for your watching till the end, and I hope for your like and comment. And, of course, subscribe.